Self-sufficiency is a farce. That may seem like a pretty wild claim coming from a homesteader when the overarching claim of everything that we've been told as homesteaders is that self-sufficiency is kind of the whole goal behind everything that we're doing. In so much of the YouTube content I'm seeing, all of the talks that I'm hearing given at various homesteading festivals, the message is don't trust the government. It's time to arm yourself and protect your homestead. There's only 40 harvests left. And some of those claims are definitely more valid than others. And I will definitely admit that I used to buy into a lot of them. I mean, this channel is literally called Anne of all trades. I spent 12 years trying to learn how to do everything I could possibly conceive that I might someday need to know for myself to be able to do literally every aspect of life for myself, by myself. I learned how to do woodworking, how to work on old vehicles. I took up beekeeping. I learned how to make cheese and butter and sauerkraut. I learned how to grow and harvest and grind my own wheat and popcorn, how to weld and fabricate, how to fix my chainsaw, how to maintain tools and small equipment. I learned how to grow a garden, how to collect and store seeds, how to improve your soil without having to rely on commercial fertilizers. I got some illegal chickens so that I could have my very own backyard egg supply. I even learned how to cook sourdough and sew my own clothes, all in service of becoming completely self-sufficient. And along the way, the motivation that initially started me down this path and the thing that was going to keep me motivated to keep going down this path completely shifted. One of my absolute favorite things about well-trained animals is that they know exactly what to do. Back up or you're gonna be in the way. All right, Brownie, you know which one to go to? Yeah, you do, girl. Come on, Chet, you know which stand is yours. Good girl. Look at these sweet girls. They're the absolute best. Fear really only gets you so far. Long term, it is impossible to use something like fear to stay motivated, especially when you're doing something as hard as all of this. Long-term motivation requires something far more powerful than fear. It's a sense of purpose, and you don't get purpose from fear. If you've hung around here long enough to see me do a lot of the more historical trades type things like hand tool woodworking and learning how to use a treadle sewing machine and harvesting fiber and turning it into yarn, you'll know that I kind of got obsessed with the Industrial Revolution because from a historical perspective, with the devices and the technologies that were supposed to make our life easier, that was about as far advanced as we got as a society before things really started to fall apart. The Industrial Revolution started about 200 years ago, and up to that point, 80 to 90% of humans throughout recorded civilized human society were involved in some way in an agrarian society. So what I mean by that is that pretty much everyone was a farmer or was in some other way involved in the creation, preservation, or continuation of whatever basic provisions humans needed to survive. And in that, for most of human history, every single facet of human life was created, built, preserved, or whatever else by a small community of people within about a 40 to 60 mile radius. Hey, little Mien. You little muffin. Look at that little tushy. Every night when the light hits right here, I'm always like, man, that is the most beautifully lit compost pile. It's so picturesque. Gotta get these gals some water. Did you know that a lactating cow will drink between 10 and 50 gallons of water a day? So imagine our 18 beautiful bovines in the peak of their lactation, in the peak of summer, and how many buckets that would be to carry if the grid actually did go down. This is my sweet little butter, Cheddar's little butter. This is a beef mommy. That's a beef mommy. And there is Hattie, our first Belfair heifer. These four ladies here are the future of our dairy herd. And as it happens, we're actually currently waiting on yet another calf to be born. And tonight we have our quarterly square dance, one of my absolute favorite ways to celebrate my favorite things about homesteading. So much is happening. I agree. As much time, effort, research, and energy we put into making sure that our cows get absolutely every good thing that they need from the grass that they eat, the chaff hay that we feed them, the grain that we very carefully select for them, even down to the species of grass that we seasonally plant for them. The reality is that they aren't able to get all of their nutrition from the food that we feed them, so we also give them the necessary vitamins and minerals that they need. Free choice in a buffet like this. Hold on, there's a kerfuffle. Allow me a quick diversion from talking about cow nutrition to human nutrition so we can talk about the sponsor of today's video, Ritual. We've shared a little bit about our fertility journey with you all here, and in that, I actually found Ritual when I was looking for a good prenatal vitamin, and this was the only one that didn't actually make me more sick. These are specially formulated to be gentle on our bodies. Fertility stuff is already stressful enough, and I don't want to have to worry about what's actually in my vitamins, which is why I love this mom-founded company that has every single key ingredient in here traceable to its original source. So I know exactly what I'm putting in my body, and I have every confidence that it's going to actually support a healthy pregnancy and a healthy baby as well. All of the vitamins that I need are in their most bioavailable form in here, and these capsules are vegan. Not that that's a huge issue for me, but also other major allergen-free, as well as tested by a third party for heavy metals and microbes. So if you're looking for a quality prenatal vitamin that actually tastes good, which I know that sounds weird, but trust me, if you've had one, you know what I mean. Check out Ritual, and you'll get 25% off of your first order of Ritual if you click the link in the video description. All right, guys. You're all done now. Come on. Come on. No, ma'am. Come on, Cheddar. Let's go, buddy. Cheddar is the lowest cow on the proverbial totem pole, and all of the other cows except Cheddar have horns. And so she is a little harder to convince. And what often looks like stubbornness in animals is something else. In this case, it's her being scared. Come on, Cheddar. Here we go, bud. Good girl. Come on, Brownie. I'm getting set up for what possibly could be another long night in the barn as I wait for yet another calf to be born. And it was actually a night just like this a few years ago when my motivations for, reasons for, all of that completely changed. Travel back in time with me for a second. It is 6 years ago. We are living in Seattle. I am working 3 jobs to try to make ends meet, and most of our food is coming from the food bank. I'm coming off the longest work week of my life. I am absolutely exhausted. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. I have to be back up at 6, and I'm on my way into the house to just get a couple hours of sleep when I hear something down in the barn. So of course, I run down there, and that is the exact moment, of course, because it always happens like this, that my goat decided to tie a world record and give birth to sextuplets. I came down to the barn to put everyone to bed and just do last checks, especially because we've been on baby watch with Dolly Parton, and sure enough, she had started to go into labor, and we've got ourselves some babies. The birth didn't go well at all. By the time the sun came up the next morning, one of the babies had already died. I had had to go in after the last baby, and I was trying to save it. But that night in the barn was the loneliest night of my entire life. My husband was less than 50 feet away, tucked away, sleeping soundly in his bed, and it wasn't by any fault of his own that he wasn't there. I mean, he was working multiple jobs too. He was fully focused on the same things I was, at trying to get us out of debt and trying to be able to get a little bit of a head start to be able to take our next steps in life. And that didn't involve him being up all night in the barn with me, because goats were my thing, not his. Our farm at that time was literally just a house in the middle of suburbia. There was a major road right behind our house, and on every conceivable side, we were surrounded by other suburbanites doing their suburbia city thing. So finding a community of people that were interested in homesteading and self-sufficiency and stuff where we were at was impossible unless I took an hour or two drive outside of where we were. In fact, what I was doing was actually so weird to the people around us that it almost felt like I myself was an animal in a zoo. People were stopping by constantly because they could see our house from the road, they could see what we're doing. They're like, hey, can we come to your petting zoo? Can we bring our kids? Can we have a field trip here? And in every way I wanted to say, yeah, sure, like come see what, like come be a part of it. But it wasn't that they wanted to be a part of it. It was that they wanted to experience it once, leave, and everything about that was transactional, not relational. At that point, my husband and I had lived in Seattle for 10 years. It was where he grew up, it was where he had the most career opportunities, and for that season of life, it totally made sense for us to be there. But as I buried that baby goat by myself that morning and just thought about like, man, that was one of the most wild experiences of my life, and I have no one to share it with. I think it's time we need to go somewhere else so we can find community around this thing that has become so important to me. So I finished digging that little grave. I walked inside and I said to my husband, I cannot keep doing this by myself. It's not possible. We have got to go somewhere. We can find some other people to take some pieces of this on so I don't have to do it all. Fast forward not even a few weeks, and I'm sitting on the floor of my friend Tyler's tiny house in Tennessee. Tyler and her husband had been working with a bunch of other young farmers to grow food for their community, for profit, for 10 years at this point. And funnily enough, she told me a story just like my GoPro story. She told me about what it was like for her running her raw dairy by herself and being in the calving barn, having to pull a calf by herself, and how absolutely devastating that experience was for her. And she said, you know what I need most is someone to do this with. And it was that moment that I was like, yep, we're moving to Tennessee and we're getting some cows. And that, my friends, is where we are right now. This is the dairy barn that Tyler and I have been working together in to create raw dairy products for our local community. To bring things full circle, we now are able to do things for the food bank and for profit that makes everything work. And the best part about all of this, for me at least, and I'm pretty sure for her too, is that waiting for births is no longer a solitary endeavor. Last year, we had to make the impossible decision to put down half of our dairy herd and to basically start over. And it was awful, but we got to have each other to talk the whole thing through. All right, we're gonna take a quick break from this story because I need to go bartend for the square dance, and Mama Calf is not doing anything anytime soon. So we'll be back.
Into the center with a hoop and a shout. That was nice, do it twice.
This is why we moved here, in case you were wondering.
Go back and swing your partner.
I think it's easy to romanticize what life must have been like 200 years ago, before screens, before corporate jobs, before fast food and governments ruined everything. We can feel a longing to cut the cord, to buy 30 acres and just ditch society and do things on our own. But the harsh reality that I think all of us need to be reminded of from time to time is that farmers 200 years ago knew that to be able to survive, they had to play a part in a community that was larger than themselves. In times of abundance, they shared with their neighbors because they knew that there was times of lack that were coming, and they lived with confidence that in the same way that they had helped their neighbors in their time of need, that the next time they had needs of their own, their community would show up for them. So what's the point of all this? Doing anything in service of yourself, focusing on self-reliance, doing all of the things for myself. I really missed the point. I started farming 12 years ago in a season of extreme scarcity in my own life. I wanted food security because I didn't have it. But today, I keep farming, not out of a mindset of scarcity, not because of fear, not because I'm afraid. Today I farm because it gives me such a tangible sense of meaning and purpose, and a place where I know I fit in my community. Knowing that I'm not gonna spend any more nights alone in the barn is the stuff that actually keeps me going on those hard, impossible feeling moments when all I really wanna do is quit. I do hard things every day, and I know I'm gonna be able to keep doing them tomorrow and the next day and the next day after that, because I want people looking on to see how important family, serving my community, and actually living a life that has a tangible meaning and purpose is to me. I've spent the last 12 years making my life harder on purpose. My life is no longer about how can I best serve myself today, but what kind of legacy do I want to leave? So the next time you hear a farmer you admire talking about self-sufficiency and self-reliance in a way that is pushing towards isolation, ignore them. Find your place and find your people. Because, buddy, that's where the good stuff is.